Hey everyone, it's Prismantis. I'm back with some more digital art tips that I've learned over time that hopefully you can employ in your own studies. Keep in mind that just because I know about some of these tips doesn't mean that I'm the expert at them. I'm also learning. And today's, lesson is about how to make your sketches look finished. And I think that that's an issue that a lot of people, especially amateur artists, struggle with when they start posting their art online, on social media. They want to post gigantic sketch dumps. I'll get into that later. But they're frustrated that they can't make their sketches look as good as some more professional artists' sketches. Now, I do have, I think, about 10 tips for this. Between 8 and 10, it depends on how you count it. But I'm pretty confident that they're going to make your piece pop if you decide to employ just one of them. So first up, I draw on a mid-brightness background, warm tone theoretically, because otherwise staring at a white canvas kind of hurts my eyes. And it's the same principle as drawing on mid-tone paper. You don't start with highlights, you start with midtones, and then you can add highlights after. You get a better view of what makes a piece pop if you start with the midtones. I think that really works to also set apart the sketch itself from a blank abyss white background, which is like the typical sketch you see posted on the internet. Secondly, there's that common sentiment that we love our sketches, but we hate our line art. And the reason that we don't like our line art as much is because generally the sketch has more effective line weight and visual weight distribution. And it tends to be looser and more dynamic because it's just a sketch, you're throwing it away, right? So emphasizing these qualities while already in the sketch phase will therefore make your sketch look more complete, like line art or like a later stage in the illustrating process. So the more that you kind of drill into those techniques intentionally, you can then benefit from it kind of coming across like line art. Some other things, sub-points in the same point. Line art brushes tend to be 100% opacity, so maybe try sketching with a brush at 100% opacity, and then using hatching or other effects to simulate that type of shading that you would otherwise do with a mid-opacity sketch brush pencil thing. Here you can see in the Speedpaint, I transitioned from using a soft, medium opacity pencil brush to a relatively dense black pencil brush. It's the same pencil brush I happen to use for my line art. Though it's not technically line art, I would say it's in the in-between stage. But a sketch is supposed to be imperfect anyways. Alternatively, you can add some cell shading shadows to create the illusion of depth and volume without actually rendering, which is what I do here. Third, color in the sketch with a flat color so it stands out against the background. This kind of plays into point 1, and you can do this very quickly in Clip Studio Paint with the Close and Fill tool without that I went over in my previous video. And you can create the illusion of visual complexity with a gradient fill. If you have lighter colors on top, because that's where light comes from naturally, and darker color on bottom. To contrast, make sure that the background has an opposite gradient directions. The darker colors would be on top, the lighter colors would be on bottom. This kind of plays into something really cool called the windmill principle that was originally coined by the artist James Gurney. You can find this in this windmill that was originally painted by Rembrandt. You can see how there's multiple contrasting instances of the dark subject versus light background, the light background versus dark subject, dark versus dark, and light versus light. You can kind of pause the video to see what I'm talking about. Here's another demonstration that James Gurney supplies with this Anders Zorn portrait, and another with a painting by Sir Alfred Munnings. So I first saw the windmill principle discussed on Twitter, but looking into it further led me to James Gurney's book called Imaginative Realism, which is where he outlines it more. I've seen some more art YouTubers talk about this book, but I've linked it here in the description, as well as his blog in the description for further reading. I'm not an affiliate whatsoever. I just really strongly recommend you look into it if you're looking for art tips in general. I mean, that's why you're watching this video, right? Number 4, adding some kind of texture to the background creates atmosphere. Number 5, adding strong rim light to your characters creates depth and makes them pop out of the background. That's pretty self-explanatory. Number 6, adding background patterns or shapes. You get a little bit more variety visually if you do this, especially if your background is just kind of like a flat, abyss. Number 7, if you crop it closer to the figure in an interesting way, you can kind of get away with it not looking like a sketch, because generally sketches aren't really compressed and cropped like final paintings are, right? Number 8, if you use hatch marks or parallel lines, you can suggest texture, volume, direction, and therefore you can guide the eye of the viewer in a way that resembles a more finished illustration. Number 9, if you post a series of sketches with a cohesive subject or theme, it kind of makes them look like they're a part of a set. And if you post a sketch dump on social media, you also get the benefits of a little bit more attention on it, therefore. Number 10, if you add foreground particles or other obscuring elements, you end up with a piece that has more dimension and a sense of atmosphere. This should all take place in the last 10% of your sketch. Honestly, you can see how in this speed paint, I don't really do like half of this stuff until the very, 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 very last stretch of it. And that kind of reflects how in your actual art journey, your focus should not be on the finishing touches. Your focus should be on improving your skills in drawing, anatomy, or whatever else you want to focus on. And then at the very end, you know how to make a piece look wrapped up, like it has a little bow on it, right? That you can deliver to a client or that you can post on the internet without feeling like you're posting something incomplete. However, caveat, posting something incomplete is kind of the point of posting sketches, right? So if you're the kind of person who's really self-conscious about posting something that feels incomplete, it's like, you're like, it doesn't look done. Do it anyway. I don't care. Do it anyway. Do it because that is an accurate representation of what the process is like to make a work in progress. It's the point. But if you've already done that and you're tired of it and you want to start posting stuff that takes advantage of the bank of your sketches that you have just sitting around and you want to try doing something new, you want to do something creative, then I suggest you employ some of these tips and see where that takes you. Thanks for watching. You can check out my social medias where I post digital art in my description box. And you can also subscribe to my Patreon and see a bunch of work in progress shots and exclusive pieces. And if you subscribe to a certain tier, you can decide what I draw that month. If you also want to check out my Etsy store, it's currently stewing, so I'll let you know when that's out. But otherwise, I'll see you around. Thanks for watching. I said that twice. Thanks for watching. There you go. 3 times. That's a charm.